Hi friends, it's Sherry from Our Life Homeschooling. In this video, I'm going to be covering how I teach spelling without a curriculum. If you know me, I don't spend a lot of time talking about curriculum because I think the atmosphere in your home and your relationships with your kids are so much more important. But I have had many people ask about teaching spelling, so I thought it would be a great idea to cover this topic thoroughly. I'm going to tell you the 3 tools that I use to teach spelling to my kids without using a curriculum. Welcome to Our Life Homeschooling. My name is Sherry, Christian, wife to my high school sweetheart Nelson, and thankful mom to 10 incredible kids. I'm the author of the blog and YouTube channel Our Life Homeschooling, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I believe that motherhood is ministry, and homeschooling is simply an extension of parenting. My passion is to cheer on other moms who are at home doing the most important work of all, raising the next generation for the glory of God. If you struggle to find a spelling curriculum that is a good fit for you, you're in good company. When I started homeschooling several years ago, 15 years ago to be exact, I was looking for something that would meet the needs of my son at that time and something that I thought was just really effective, that would help him be a good speller. In my search, I began to question if a formal program was really necessary for a child to be a good speller. And this is what's led me to where we are now. Now, there are tons of spelling curriculums out there. I've heard about a lot of them. I've seen a couple of them firsthand, just leafing through them. But when I look at the typical spelling curriculum, to me, it looks like a lot of busy work. When I think back to how we learned spelling in grade school, it was the one subject I liked because it was easy. Spelling was pretty easy. On Monday, you write your words 2 times. Tuesday, you write the words in a sentence. That was a little bit more work. Wednesday, it was usually some kind of game like a crossword puzzle or a word search. Thursday was spelling bee, that's always fun, and then Friday is the spelling test. It was a subject that just wasn't super hard. The homework was the same every week. And as a parent, I may have liked that in grade school, but as a parent, I look at this quite a bit differently. I think that's a great way to teach spelling if you're looking for ways to keep your kids busy. If you want some busy work and you want to give them spelling words every week, I think that is a great way to go. But I also believe that there's just a much more effective way to teach spelling that doesn't take up so much time, that can be part of what the kids are already doing. And that's what I've used for my kids over the last 15 years. To me, writing words out of context like that, writing words in isolation is just a waste of time. I would like for our kids to learn spelling in the context of meaningful passages of literature, while also studying the typical patterns and rules that are in the English language. What makes a child a good speller? While I do think that some kids, it just comes a little bit more naturally to them than others, if you want your kids to be good spellers, they have to be writing. Have them write. Practice copywork, have them write stories. Let them play through writing. Sometimes my kids like to make up these little plays and stories that they like to act out for us. They like to write newsletters for Christmas or for holidays, like family newsletters. Any ideas like that that they have, that they get excited about writing, just let them go. Let them do those kinds of things because writing makes kids more attentive to spelling. And I think it's really important to note too that your kids are not going to want to write. It's not going to be something that's just like a first thought to them. They may not act a lot of writing if they're first not immersed in a rich, literate environment. It's so important to be reading to your kids every day. Read in small chunks throughout the day. Kids can't express what they don't possess. And when you read rich stories to them, it gives them a wealth of ideas to pull from that will make them want to write more. Now, there are a couple of things I've learned over time as a homeschool mom for 15 years. We have 10 kids. We have a graduate. We had 7 in school last year. And you just learn things as you go. One thing I learned was that sometimes kids aren't good spellers just because they're just not paying attention to it. They don't even realize it. And once you point it out, if you point out a couple words that are misspelled and show them how to spell it, some of them will just automatically pay more attention and be more careful about it. So I really don't stress out when my 8-year-old, 9-year-old is not spelling well, because I know that in a very short period of time, if you just point it out, they'll be more attentive to it. Or if you use some of the tools that I'm going to be sharing with you, kids will be more attentive to their spelling. And I also learned specifically as kids get older, when they get an email account, when they can start messaging friends, all of a sudden they see that spell correct and they're just a little bit more concerned about their spelling. They're much more aware of it when they have to fill out a job application or write down a little essay or something something that they're applying for. When they break out into the real world and they're having to communicate with people that they want to make a good impression with, all of a sudden spelling becomes really important to them. So I would not stress if you have kids that are just not there yet. Like, they're just writing for fun and a lot of their stuff is misspelled. I mean, during your school hours, it's great to take the time to point it out to them, but it's not something I would get all anxious about and think that we're missing something, we gotta fix this problem. I would just consistently use the 3 tools that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video that we use without using a formal curriculum. Now, before I get into our 3 spelling tools, I want to tell you about Brave 2025. Brave 2025 is an online homeschool conference. You're going to want to save the date for August 31st through July 2nd. There will be over 20 of your favorite speakers talking all about homeschooling topics. 5 live Q&A sessions. I'll be sitting in on one of them. One of the most important things in homeschooling is to surround yourself with people that are doing the same thing that you're doing. That's important to do in person, whether that's through a co-op or friends that you know or people at church, but it's also helpful to meet other people online and to get encouragement from YouTube, from bloggers, other people that have been homeschooling for a while and can speak into your life, encourage you, remind you of what's important. And that is what Brave 2025 is all about. Now, you can get the early bird ticket up until June 30th. So if you're seeing this, hearing this before June 30th, you are still in time to get the early bird registration. But Brave is also free to anyone who has a Made to Homeschool account. So I'm going to leave the link below for the Brave Homeschool Online Conference. I'm excited to be at Brave 2025 this year, and I hope to see you there. The very first tool that I use in teaching my kids how to spell is Copywork. Copywork as a long-term habit. I'm not talking about trying Copywork for a couple weeks. Trying Copywork for a year. Copywork is an underutilized tool. I've talked about this so many times. I think if you talk to other experienced homeschool moms, they will also sing the praises of Copywork. If you're not convinced of Copywork, if you think you need to have a formal curriculum to teach writing, to teach spelling, go ahead and do that. But you should also include Copywork because it is so effective. It's like a multivitamin. It covers so many skills in addition to spelling. If you're not familiar with Copywork, it's the simple habit of hand copying selections of text from great authors. So we're talking about quality literature, books that you would use as a read aloud. And if you're looking for some great copywork, I have tons of free copywork that you can print out and use in your homeschool on the blog, ourlifehomeschooling.com. If you think about it, how do we learn to do almost anything? We learn it by copying people that do it really well. Copywork challenges kids to copy the written work of excellent communicators. In Copywork, the child observes first and then writes. One example I like to use is thinking of the difference between going to a certain location by riding in a car or by walking there. If you are going to the mountains, for example, and you go in a car, you're going to observe a couple landmarks along the way. However, if you slow down and you go there on foot, you walk there, you're going to remember so many more details about the trip from your home to the mountains. This is what Copywork does. When you slow down and do that actual act of writing something down by hand, it does something in your brain. It just cements those thoughts and ideas, those details in your mind. And when you're writing words in context rather than in isolation, it adds even further relevance. If you're wondering how much to have a child copy, I use the rule of thumb: 1 sentence for first grade, 2 sentences for second grade, 3 sentences for third grade, and so on. That's just a good starting place. If you have a child that wants to do more, by all means, let them do that. But that is a good frame of reference if you're wondering where to start. Now, one thing I've heard some moms talk about who perhaps haven't been using Copywork is that they'll get frustrated when their child cannot spell very simple, common words. Like, they'll spell this really hard and challenging word, and then they'll get to a word like and or the or something that you just see all the time, and they struggle to spell that. That is one benefit of Copywork that you're probably not going to see in a spelling curriculum. In formal curriculums, they don't always go through some of those common words that we use, like those 100 common words that we're using throughout the day. So that is one benefit I think a lot of people don't see in Copywork. And the biggest thing really is just that it's free and it takes so little time. It's so easy. If you're a mom like I am and you have multiple children and you don't have time for individual spelling lessons, that's where I am. I thought that I was taking a step back by having my kids do Copywork. I can't give you guys each individual spelling lessons, so we're going to try Copywork. That's kind of where it started for me. And then I realized that I was the one that was fooled because Copywork is so effective. It's more effective than individual spelling lessons or the type of spelling that I grew up with, just writing words and having a different assignment every day. If you want to know about Copywork, you can search on the blog. I have written several posts about Copywork, and so that will answer a lot of your questions. But I'm going to move on to the second tool that we use. We also teach patterns and rules that are typical to the English language. Now, we do this in morning time. I have a list of about 25 rules that we go through and we split it up. So last year we learned the first 12 rules, and then this year we're going to be learning the last 13 rules, and then we'll just kind of flip-flop every year. I do this in morning time. Maybe some of you have seen my simple morning time notebook. This is the notebook I use in morning time for the whole year. I make a new one every year. It's available to you. I'll leave a link below if you want to check it out. This is all the topics that we cover in morning time: composer study, art study, scripture memory, memory work, hymn study, nature study. All those things are in the simple morning time notebook. I also have the spelling patterns and rules that we'll be using this year. So you can take a look at that if you'd like. Simple patterns that are helpful for the kids to see. For example, when two vowels are together, the first vowel says its long sound or its name, and the second vowel is quiet. This is a pattern, just one example, that is helpful for them to understand after they've already been doing Copywork as a regular habit. Another example of a pattern or a rule is that when you have an E, I, or a Y after a G or a C, it says its soft sound instead of its hard sound. Seeing patterns like this in spelling just makes them aware of it, and it breaks the English language down for them into patterns that they can regularly see. I teach this in morning time, and I'm just going to briefly share with you how I do it. Basically, we just get one rule. I pick one rule for the day. I write it on the whiteboard. So if I was using the example of the hard and soft G and C sound, I would write the rule out on the whiteboard, and then I'd have the kids give me examples. So if you have an E, I, or a Y after a G, it would make it soft sound. So one example would be gentleman. And then I have the kids see if they can come up with some other examples, and we'll write them all down on the whiteboard. Sometimes I have them copy that because I know how helpful it can be to copy things. When you handwrite something, you remember it better. But we'll sit, it takes about 5 minutes, and the kids will give me examples of this pattern that they see. If you'd like to see my full list of spelling patterns and rules without getting the Simple Morning Time notebook, I also have a link that you can download and print the spelling patterns for yourself for free. I'll leave that below so you can get one for yourself if you'd like to use that in your homeschool. The last tool that I use in teaching my kids how to spell is dictation and narration. Now, I said both of these for a purpose. I know that they're two different practices, but I'm going to explain why. I say dictation, but I'm going to be completely transparent with you and say dictation is not something that I practice and use all the time in my homeschool. I've used it from time to time. I think it's really good. It's one of those things that's just extra and sometimes gets left out. If I had a child that was particularly struggling with spelling, I would practice dictation more. That's why I mention it here. I would make it probably a weekly practice. And one caution that I would give is I wouldn't have them copy the same passage for Copywork over and over for like 4 days, and then on the 5th day, dictate it and have them write it. I've had people ask me questions about that, and I am just personally not a fan of doing the same thing over and over because it's boring. It's boring. I wouldn't want to do it. I would know each day as I'm writing out that passage again for the 3rd time, for the 4th time, that I'm just doing busy work, and I wouldn't enjoy it. I would just trust the process of having them copy different sections of Copywork every day, and then randomly, or maybe once a week, pull out something that they recently copied, have them dictate it to you, and then when you're done, sit down, have them read the dictation that they wrote, and talk about the different words that they've misspelled or spelled correctly in the dictation, in the writing. Now, one tool that I do use regularly in our homeschool is narration, and that's the second one I mentioned. And this one is very similar. I use this to cover many writing skills. I will read a selection to my kids or have them read it to themselves, depending on the age. This is also something I've talked a lot about. I have a whole blog post on doing a Charlotte Mason narration in your homeschool, exactly how I do it. But I would read a selection to a child, have them write a narration based on what they read, and then I would sit down with them, have them read their narration to me, and then go over not only spelling, I would go over other writing skills as well. But this is a time when I would sit down and talk with them about the words they misspelled, go through some of those patterns and rules. Sometimes, you're not always going to have a pattern and rule that applies to a word that they misspelled. I would have them rewrite the word correctly. And the more you do this kind of checking with them, dictation and narration, the more aware they are going to be of spelling words correctly. It just makes them stop and think about it a little bit more. I think back to when I first start narration with any of my kids. This is a similar example. I'll read a little section and I'll say, okay, tell it back to me. They're never paying attention. They always are like, oh, can you read that again? They're never good at narrating the first time that I practice it with them, or the 9th or 10th time. It takes a little bit of time of just regularly doing it. It's similar with spelling. When you start checking their spelling or having them do actual writing assignments, whether dictation or narration, and they know that you're going to be looking at their spelling, or if they have to fill out a job application or text a friend, email a friend, and they know that someone is looking at their spelling, it just makes them more aware and they want to spell their words correctly. I hope this has given you some ideas, especially if you're torn on what kind of spelling curriculum to use, or if you want to simplify spelling in your homeschool, if it's just that one subject that you just have a hard time getting to because the other subjects are pressing. I hope this gives you an idea of where to start, how to use it in a way that is effective. I've been teaching my kids to spell for 15 years this way. I'm happy with the results, and I think you will be as well. Thanks for listening. I do one video a week on homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I'll see you next week.